Welcome to the tutorial on how to create this gorgeous cartoon style cake slice. So you'll see there are two sizes of cakes that you can stitch in your DIY kit. I'm going to be going with the smaller piece today, and I'm just going to cut around it, and then I'm going to find where I want to place it. Now I don't actually think I'm going to put this in the middle. I think I'm going to put it bottom left, my left. I think because I'd like the option to add some more things, as this is going to be a birthday sweater. So I'm just going to pop that onto my garment now. So let's take it off the backing, and we're just going to pop it on the garment, making sure that there are no rolled edges and it's nice and secure to my sweater. So I'm just going to start with the icing on the top, which I'm going to do in a pink. So I've just put onto my needle approximately 1.5 or a good armful of the pink yarn, and we're going to go in with the satin stitch. Now this is my starting point that I've chosen. I like to start sort of in the middle and work my way across each side when it comes to satin stitch. So I've just got to leave a tail underneath to tie off to. And I'm just going to do a nice little straight stitch here. You'll see I'm going to go up to this guideline here, and we're just going to pop a stitch into there, and we're just going to go to the left first, and then we're going to come back on ourselves and fill in the right section. I'm just going to make sure that this stitch is nice and close to the first one, and we're just going to make sure that that's in line again and pop my needle just at the same point that I put my first one, and this keeps it nicely uniformed and makes it just look a little bit neater. And we're just going to pop a little stitch in here so that we can go underneath the candle. And then once we're done there, we're just going to go all the way to the end. So we'll just anchor that last one down with a stitch, and then we can turn our garment over. I need my needle to be on the other side. In order to do this, I'm just going to track my needle underneath my work. Now you'll hear me say quite a lot in my videos, track and tie, and that just means we're tracking underneath our work to bring our tails together, which we're going to tie off to, which I'll show you how to do in a minute. We're just going to carry on with our satin stitch here, so I'm just going to go underneath this little piece of frosting that's also holding our cherry. So we're just going to go underneath there with the same satin stitch, and we're going to go all the way across. So now that we've finished in that top section, I've got enough yarn on my needle to continue this next row. So this is kind of like an overlay, so the icing is on the top and then it kind of drips over the side. So we're going to do this whole section in pink as well, and we're going to just keep going with our satin stitch all the way, keeping our needle in the mark within the guidelines here. So we don't want to go over the line, we just want to stay neatly inside it. And we'll finish that all the way to the end here, and we'll just pop that one down with a stitch. Now to tie off, we're just going to flip our garment over, and luckily enough both of our tails are here, so the threaded one and our starting tail. So we're just going to tie those together in a triple knot and snip away any excess threads. Next, I've put on my needle about 1/2 meter of the pink yarn again, as we're going to do this section going up here. Now we're going to keep going with the satin stitch, so I'm going to bring my needle up and we're going to leave a little tail underneath to tie off to, and then we're just going to continue our satin stitch going up the edge of the cake. So we're just going to anchor that last bit down with a stitch, and then we're going to flip our garment over, and this is where we're going to do our track and tie off. So our two tails are too far away from each other, so I'm just going to track through my work, and then we're just going to tie these two ends together in a triple knot. And next I'm going to thread on, I've chosen the yellow colour, and we're just going to do this block here, and we're just going to go across again with our satin stitch. Make sure to keep a tail to tie off to later and stay within the markings. And once we reach the end, we're just going to do our last stitch. And then when we flip our garment over, we're going to do what we did before with our track and tie off. So we're just going to track our needle through the work that we've just done so that we can bring these two tails together to tie off to. We're going to repeat that process again for 2 more layers. So I've decided to go with the turquoise here. Again, we're going to track and tie off. And then for the last one, I'm doing a yellow again. And once again, we're going to do our track and tie off. Next, I'm just going to thread on about 1/2 meter of the white yarn, and I'm just going to go in and fill in this little piece of frosting here. Now this is a part where you might be like, oh my gosh, Renee, this is not looking right. And this is a real trust the process, because it's going to look a little bit out of shape, but we're going to fix that up because we've got our black outline to put in yet. So that's going to help us bring all of our definition back together. So let's just trust the process. Let's get this satin stitch in nice and neatly, and then we can come back to it and fix up the shape later. Next, I've put about 1/2 meter of red yarn onto my needle, and I'm just going to do the little cherry here. Now, I do want to keep some of the detail, so where the stem goes into the cherry and that little line underneath it, I want to keep all of that detail. And when it comes to stitching my black outline, I'm going to be popping that into there. So I'm not going to stitch over that, I'm just going to stitch around it. And once we've finished filling that in, we're just going to tie off with a triple knot. Now with the candle, I have gone ahead here and put the white in, but I'm going to do white, pink, alternating for the candle. And this is a very simple stitch. It's just 2 to 3 little straight stitches in each box. So you'll see here, I'm probably only going to get 2 in here. And then I'm just going to bring my needle up to the next box where I think we'll probably fit 3 in. And then once I'm finished with that, again, we'll just do our track and tie off those 2 ends again. And that's our candle nicely stitched. Next, I've just popped a very small amount of orange yarn onto my needle, and I'm just going to go ahead and satin stitch inside the flame of the candle. Now you can see that the little wick there is showing in the middle too. I want to keep that detail as well. So I'm just going to pop 1 long stitch in there and then 2, well, I'm going to put 1 to the right, and then we'll move across to the left and fill that in with probably 2 stitches again. And then of course, just tying off those 2 ends together in a triple knot. And now our piece of cake is all finished. We're just going to go in with our black outline. Now, in order to achieve that cartoony look, we're going to pop a black outline on every single line of this piece of cake. So every bit of detail needs a black outline. And this is where you'll get all of your definition back in all of your little pieces, like your candle and your cherry. And this is the bit that I love the most. It's actually the funnest. So I've just threaded on about 1 meter of black yarn, and for this we're going to do a back stitch. So we're just going to start at this point here, leaving a tail underneath. We're going to go in about 1/2 centimeter and bring your needle down, and then we're going to skip 1/2 centimeter space, bring our needle up, and we're just going to pop our needle back into that previous stitch. And this is how we do a back stitch. So we're going to pull that down, and then we're going to leave another 1/2 centimeter space. Pull your needle through, and then we're just going to then bring our needle back into the previous stitch again. So we're not actually going into the stitch, we're just going into the area where we actually stitched that one down. So they're almost sharing that same little stitching hole. So again, leaving a space of 1/2 centimeter, and then we're just going to bring our needle back into the previous stitching hole, and then we'll continue like this all the way around, making sure that we don't miss any little pieces, as this is what gives it that gorgeous little cartoon look. And then we're just going to continue all the way around, making sure that we don't miss any little areas, like the cherry stem, and then also the candle as well. And then all the outlines of the cake, including the center parts as well. And then we're just going to track and tie off as we have been. And now that's all finished and looking super sweet, we're going to remove our stabilizer. So to remove your stabilizer, I would suggest just popping it under a running water. You might need to use your hand just to sort of remove some of the product. And if when you dry it, if it's still a little bit stiff, you just might need to repeat this process. Flat lay to dry, and then you are done. You've made a gorgeous little cartoon cake. Happy, happy stitching.